Hey guys, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. This is your host Thomas Tyree from On the Hot Podcast. Today, I have some bonus content for you guys. The bonus content we'll be covering today will be in the sport of boxing. In today's bonus segment, I'll be sharing my toughest opponents that Gervonta Davis has ever faced in his boxing career. So before we get into that, I do have 3 opponents on Gervonta Davis's list of the opponents I do believe have been his toughest fights in his boxing career thus far. But I do have an honorable mention. My honorable mention is Frank the Ghost Martin. I do believe that Frank Martin will be one of Gervonta Davis's toughest opponents in his boxing career thus far. His upcoming fight against Frank Martin will not be an easy task. It will not be an easy walk in the ballpark. Frank the Ghost Martin is coming to take everything that Gervonta Davis has. He's going to give him a run for his money June 15th in the sport of boxing when those respective fighters fight in that ring, because I do believe that it could go down as a tough fight for Gervonta Davis, because Frank Martin is a slick fighter. Frank Martin is something that Gervonta Davis really hasn't seen in terms of being a slick fighter. And I think this fight between Gervonta Davis and Frank Martin, if Gervonta Davis is victorious, this fight will set him up for future fights against a Shakur Stevenson, who is a slick fighter, who is a southpaw fighter just like Frank Martin. It will also set Gervonta Davis up for a future fight against his longtime rival, and Devin the Dream Haney, who is also a slick fighter. So this fight right here is going to tell me a lot if Gervonta Davis can handle fighting slick fighters in the future. If he could get past Frank Martin with a good performance, how would he adapt in a ring against a Shakur Stevenson one day? How would he adapt in the ring against his longtime rival Devin Haney in the ring one day? June 15th is going to answer a lot of answers between Gervonta Davis and Frank Martin. Definitely is going to be one of Gervonta Davis's hardest fights in his boxing career. But let's get into it. Gervonta Davis's 3 toughest opponents in his boxing career thus far. Starting off with number 1 on my list, Mario Barrios. Now, I do believe that Mario Barrios has been Gervonta Davis's toughest opponent since Gervonta Davis's boxing career has started. If you look back at that fight between the 2 respective fighters, that was an absolute banger. That fight that took place in the summer of 2021. And Mario Barrios, when you look at that fight between Gervonta Davis and Mario Barrios was up close on the judges' scorecards, on the unofficial judges' scorecards. And for a long time in that fight, until Gervonta Davis got going in the 8th and later rounds. But Gervonta Davis could not get into Mario Barrios' reach event. Mario Barrios shut everything down that Gervonta Davis had offensively with his height and reach advantage. He was using his reach advantage to his favor, shooting Gervonta Davis with a lot of signature body shots, a lot of stiff jabs to keep Gervonta Davis from coming in the inside. But Gervonta Davis ended up cracking the code to Mario Barrios, dropped him 3 times in the fight, two left hooks, or a right hook and a left hook that was heard around the world when he dropped Mario Barrios twice in the 8th round. The body shot that dropped him in the 11th round. And that was all she wrote when Gervonta Davis knocked out Mario Barrios in the 11th round. But if that knockout never happened, would Gervonta Davis still be undefeated in the sport of boxing? Would he still be clean of having no draws? Because without a knockout, I think Gervonta Davis would have either lost that fight, or that fight definitely would have went to a draw between himself and Mario Barrios. But that was one hell of a fight. I just believe that was Gervonta Davis's toughest task thus far. Fight number 2 on Gervonta Davis's hardest opponents was Isaac Cruz. Now, Gervonta Davis and Isaac Cruz fought in the winter time of 2021, and he accepted this fight on a 12-day notice. If you guys remember, if you guys have been following Gervonta Davis's career this whole entire time, in December 2021, that was when he was originally supposed to fight Rolly Romero. Now, Rolly Romero had to pull out of the fight due to the fact that he had sexual allegations after him, and he was forced to pull out of the fight to take care of that matter, which opened the door for Isaac Cruz to be a late 12-day notice for Gervonta Davis, and those were 2 respective fighters fought. But looking back at that fight, that was a fun fight between Gervonta Davis and Isaac Cruz. But at certain points of this fight, Gervonta Davis was frustrated at times during this fight because he was fighting somebody the same height and basically the same reach advantage as him, something he's not used to. He's used to fighting bigger guys. And Isaac Cruz is the same size as Gervonta Davis. And look, it was a competitive fight, but Gervonta Davis got the job done with one hand after he injured his hand in the midway point of that fight when he shot for that uppercut in the middle of the fight. And Isaac Cruz blocked it, which really hurt Gervonta Davis's hand. Still went on with a good win for 12 rounds, something we don't see Gervonta. Actually, that was the first time in Gervonta Davis's career that he went 12 rounds without earning a knockout. The only time that he ever went the distance, I do believe he got a 6-round win. I don't know the name of that opponent, but a 6-round decision win, I should say. But yeah, Isaac Cruz definitely gave Gervonta Davis a run for his money. And yeah, that was an exciting fight between the two respective fighters. Now, fight number 3 on my list, the final one is Leo Santa Cruz. Now, Gervonta Davis versus Leo Santa Cruz in 2020 was a competitive fight, and a lot of people view this as Gervonta Davis's biggest win in his boxing career thus far, defeating Leo Santa Cruz. It was a very competitive fight back in 2020 and goes down as one of the most memorable wins on Gervonta Davis's resume. But at that fight, looking back at it, this was crazy because both guys were slugging it back and forth in the pocket, going back and forth in the 6th round with Leo Santa Cruz on the ropes. And I will never forget this quote. If Davis thought Santa Cruz was going to fold, uppercut, windmill uppercut to Leo Santa Cruz, mamma mia. That was all she wrote because Gervonta Davis let Leo Santa Cruz down cold, down for the count. And Leo Santa Cruz was counted out of that fight, automatic knockout. That went down as the Ring Magazine's knockout of the year for Gervonta Davis. One of my favorite knockouts in boxing history that I've ever seen. That win, to me, showed a lot of maturity for Gervonta Davis, and to me showed that he can handle the big-time lights, the big-time stages on big-time platforms. And let me say this before I end the video. If anybody thought that I was going to mention Rolly Romero, shame on you. Because Rolly Romero versus Gervonta Davis was literally a showcase of what Gervonta Davis could do on a big... I shouldn't say a showcase. It was really like an act. I say I'm the act. I put asses in seats for all you to be entertained, to give you guys something to watch. Gervonta Davis just toyed with Rolly Romero until he wanted to put him away in the 6th round with that devastating left hook that sent Rolly Romero through the ropes, ready to get hit with a 619 by Rey Mysterio. But yes, those are my Gervonta Davis hardest opponents that he's ever faced in his boxing career. But that is all the time I have for you guys today. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for listening. This is your host, Thomas Tyree, signing off. And I'll see you guys on next week's episode.